Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Now, I'll just reinstate what I just told you. Your uh, blood glucose regulation occurs by two main mechanisms using glucose and insulin. All right, two important hormones that are secreted by islets of Langerhans cells, basically alpha cells and beta cells present in islets of Langerhans in your pancreas. All right, now alpha cell will produce glucagon, beta cell will produce insulin. Whenever there is low amount of blood glucose level, what will happen is glucagon is released, which will cause more glucose to be secreted into your blood through your liver through glycogenolysis, all right, or gluconeogenesis, both of them. In that condition, what will happen? Blood glucose level will rise. In case there is high blood glucose, in that condition, pancreas will secrete, or it will stimulate beta cells to secrete insulin. Insulin will basically cause peripheral tissues or peripheral cells to take up glucose from blood. It will cause what you call glucose to be stored as glycogen, and it will cause several processes wherein blood glucose level is coming down. So that it will what you call, that is how blood glucose is regulated. Now, as I was telling, hormones. Whenever we talk about maintenance of glucose, two important hormones that come into picture will obviously be glucagon and insulin. But there are other major factors as well that will contribute to whether there is hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia. Now, if there is hyperglycemia, you can understand that one of these factors is playing, or all of them are playing a role. Either it is glucose is being absorbed excessively from your intestine, or there is a lot of gluconeogenesis where new glucose is being formed, or there is glycogenolysis where glycogen is being broken down, or obviously glucagon and steroids are more in amount, wherein they are stimulating more amount of glucose to be sent into your blood. On the flip side, if there is depletion of glucose and any factors that are leading to depletion of glucose, they will include utilization of energy by tissues. Okay, they are using glucose as energy, and they're using up glucose levels present in the blood, or glucose is being converted into fat. You will learn about this in metabolism of fats, but there's a process called lipogenesis, where lipogenesis is basically formation of lipids. Okay, in your body, glucose can be converted into fat. So that is one way you can use up glucose, right? That is why whenever there is high amount of glucose, more amount of fat is also stored, because your body is not cannot handle that much amount of glucose. It is unnecessary for the body to have that much amount of glucose. It will impair normal function, so it will convert that glucose into other forms. One such form is fat. Then glycogen synthesis. So again, if excessive amount of glucose is there, it will be stored in the form of glycogen as well. And obviously insulin plays an important role, wherein it is increasing the uptake from cells itself. Okay, that is how regulation of glucose works. Now, when we talk about postprandial regulation, postprandial basically means after food. Okay, prandial regulation of glucose. Okay, basically after eating, what will happen? Now, normally after 2.5 hours, around 2.5 hours after a meal, blood glucose level will fall back to fasting levels. Okay, your fasting blood glucose is around, how much is your fasting blood glucose? इससे पहले बोला था ना, if you remember, we had discussed what are normal glucose levels, and I told you what is fasting blood glucose, what is random blood glucose, what is pre-diabetic blood glucose. What is fasting blood glucose level? You worked in a hospital for so long, no? You should at least know 2-3 months भी काम करे तो you will know what is fasting blood glucose. Think, in a normal person, what should be fasting blood glucose? Hmm. Oh dear. Okay. So you need to memorize these values. or else it will be difficult. Fasting blood glucose should normally be less than 110 milligrams per deciliter of blood. All right. If it goes beyond 110, it generally indicates either pre-diabetes. If it is going over 140, that will indicate 140. Yeah, actually, yeah, around 140, 125, 140, it will indicate diabetes. Uh, Now, coming back to this thing, what happens in after eating is around 2.5 hours after a meal, lunch, dinner, or breakfast, whatever it is, blood glucose levels will go back to near fasting levels. Okay, it'll dip down significantly. In that condition, what will happen is, to prevent your blood glucose level from decreasing anymore, glycogenolysis will start occurring. So glycogen will start breaking down, especially in your liver specifically. Glycogenolysis will occur, and sometimes gluconeogenesis will also occur, wherein whatever a new amount of glucose is being formed, that glucose is supplied into your blood, so that there is a constant energy supplied in your blood for what you call your cells to be functioning normally. Now you cannot keep on eating every 2.5 hours. Your body simply will not take it. Okay, even if you want to, your body will not be. That is excessive amount of energy. So what your body will do is, after around 2.5 hours, where your blood glucose levels, now if you have immediately eaten, let's suppose you have had breakfast at around uh, 8 a.m. Okay, around 10:30 ish, all the food that you have eaten, that will be converted into glucose. Some of it will be converted into glucose, some of it will be stored in a different way. Basically, the spike in blood glucose that occurs immediately after eating, that will fall down to the level that it is going to fasting blood glucose level. In that condition, your body, instead of creating hunger again, okay, if there is decreased amount of glucose, you do not have energy, that will cause hunger. But in between, what happens is, before inducing that response, it will cause glycogenolysis and it will cause gluconeogenesis. Okay, so breakdown of glycogen and formation of new glucose. Both of these will take care of your hunger for a little bit, your energy demand for a little bit longer, so that you can get away with eating for almost 6-7 hours, right? You can not eat for 6-7 hours and still be okay. You'll not be that hungry, right? So that is why you can have a meal once in 6-7 hours, sometimes 8 as well. Some people go for longer periods as well. In any case, during that rest period, beyond that 2.5 hour, your glucose is achieved from glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis, mainly through your liver. Now there are a few hormones that play an important role in this gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. Those hormones will be hyperglycemic hormones. Okay, so they are basically increasing the blood glucose level. Glycemic hormones. Okay, now here hyperglycemic hormones, we came to the stage how is, we initially someone ate food, after 2.5 hours blood glucose level fell down, hence these hormones are being secreted, so that blood glucose levels are coming back to normal, or are brought back to normal. Now these hormones will include, obviously the first one is glucagon, then there is epinephrine, then glucocorticoids, then growth hormone, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, and thyroxine, T3. Okay, these are all hyperglycemic hormones. Whenever these are present in blood or these are secreted, hyperglycemia will occur, or these are also, this can also be referred as anti-insulin hormones. Okay, they are doing the exact function opposite to insulin. Okay, they will increase blood glucose levels. Now, some other ways through which you can get hyperglycemia is your absorption from your gut. Okay, your GIT tract absorption of glucose will increase. Uh, that is one other way through which your what do you call hyperglycemia can occur. Now, coming to hypoglycemia, the main factor here will be, so hypoglycemic hormones or hypoglycemic hormones or hypoglycemic factors, better factors. So one is obviously insulin. the primary one, right? That will be the hypoglycemic hormone, but we'll include that here. All right. uh, what insulin does is it will basically lower your blood glucose, it will promote glycolysis, it will favor glycogen synthesis, and it will inhibit gluconeogenesis. So in all of these conditions glucose cannot be formed. All right, either it is being used up or it is not being formed. If it is inhibiting gluconeogenesis, literally new glucose cannot be formed. And if glycogen synthesis is being stimulated, whatever glucose is present, that is converted into glycogen. And lowering blood glucose is by increasing uptake from cells, and by promoting glycolysis it is again converting glucose into another form. That is another way through which glucose levels will go down. All right, some other factors will include uh, direct glycogen synthesis, so not mediated by insulin. This, when I'm writing this glycogen synthesis separately, this is not directly mediated by insulin as such. I'm telling glycogen synthesis itself plays a role in hypoglycemia. If there is a lot of glycogen synthesis, obviously hypoglycemia will occur. Lipogenesis, wherein glucose is being converted into fatty acids and lipids. Or glycolysis, TCA, both of them. Right. TCA not directly but indirectly, because one form of glucose will go into uh, pyruvate will be converted acetyl CoA, and that is when uh, TCA starts. But for pyruvate you need glycolysis, so in turn they are tied together. So these three also will play an important role in causing hypoglycemia. All right. Now when we talk about measuring the amount of glucose that is present in a person's body, basically determination of glucose in bodily fluids, you basically check two main fluids, urine and blood. All right, mostly blood will be sufficient, sometimes urine can also be used. Now there are a few methods. The primary one being, see, whenever we are taking random blood sugar, okay, it should be less than around 120 130 mg per dl. GRBS जो बोलते हैं, right? Random blood sugar, in this condition basically you're taking a person randomly. Okay, you're not monitoring their food time. Okay, you're randomly taking the regulation of glucose in their body. Now sometimes they might have hyperglycemia because what do you call their, see, hyperglycemia or diabetes can be related to several factors. It can be either their cells are not taking up, or there can be a lack of a few hormones, or it can be improper regulation of those of glucose that is being taken into their body. There are several factors. Okay. uh, in any case, when we take random blood glucose, we are randomly at any point of time measuring the amount of glucose in a person's body, and it should be fairly less than 140, not more than 140. All right, 130 140 से नीचे रहना. Now, one common method that you see is measuring glucose oxidase test. The what you call glucometer, that the instrument that you get, AccuCheck and all, they are glucometers. Okay, what they do is you again, obviously you prick your finger a little bit and you put a drop of blood on the what you call the strip that is present on the glucometer. It will basically analyze the amount of glucose oxidase and peroxidase present in your glucose, and ultimately it will be able to tell you. See, what happens inside that machine is uh, you will basically get a particular intensity of color from those enzymes, and based on that color, depending on how intense that color is, it will give you a value. Okay, it is fairly accurate, but again it is a device that I wouldn't say as accurate as proper clinical study like taking blood and performing CBC, but it is fairly accurate for an average person. In that condition, wherein you're taking a blood sample and you're putting it into the AccuCheck, right, what happens is a certain intensity of color is generated inside the instrument, wherein the more intense the color is, the higher the blood glucose level. That is what indicates. What you see is a number. Okay, on top of that measuring device, you will only see a number. You will not see as such what is the color and all of that. Now, according to WHO, a normal person should have a fasting blood glucose of around 70. Hold on, I'll show you one table, especially that is related to something called GDT. Okay, See, a normal person should have around 110, less than 110 mg per dl in fasting condition. If they have not eaten in a long period of time, 7, 8, maybe 12 hours, in that condition, their blood glucose should not go above 110 mg per dl. All right, they should obviously be hypoglycemic. If it is going above 126, that can be slightly alarming, right? If even if it goes up to 126, that is considered as frank diabetes sometimes. Take a pre-diabetic condition. Frank diabetes is pre-diabetes. Okay, if it is going well above 126, then it is generally considered that the patient might be suffering from diabetes. Now, AccuCheck is one way through which you can measure glucose, but there is another way of measuring glucose tolerance specifically. Glucose tolerance refers to basically how much amount of blood glucose your body is able to metabolize. Okay, if it is able to metabolize a lot of glucose, or if it is working normally and it is metabolizing blood glucose normally, even if you eat, let's suppose there is person A and person B. Okay, person A is eating some normal food, or let's suppose it is in a single person itself rather than two different people. Let's suppose there is one person, and in breakfast they are eating something. Okay, they are eating maybe like 3 or 4 idlis, and that is their breakfast. Okay, once their glucose level spikes, okay, after fasting, that is, you're inducing glucose in them by giving food. You are inducing glucose in them. Okay, how well their body is able to tolerate that glucose, how well their body is able to use that glucose, that is when you what you call check for glucose tolerance. This specially comes into picture when someone is eating something which is very, very hyperglycemic, in the sense that, let's suppose someone is eating something very sweet. Okay, you know that it has a lot of glucose in it. Okay, or let's suppose they are drinking glucose water itself. Okay, they drink Glucon D or something. In that condition, how well their body is handling the glucose, how well it is able to metabolize the glucose, so that now obviously initially there will be a spike. Whenever I'm talking about tolerance of glucose, it means that initially I know there will be a spike. As soon as they eat, there will be a spike. But how quickly can your body resolve that spike? How quickly can your body bring it back to normal and what you call use the glucose wherever it is required? That is what glucose tolerance refers to. Now you can test this glucose tolerance using something called glucose tolerance test, GTT बोलते हैं उसको. The common one is oral glucose tolerance test called OGTT. Okay, what you do is you basically ask the patient to fast for almost 12 hours. Okay, so basically, let's suppose you are asking a patient to come to a lab tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow morning, you ask the patient to stop eating anything at today at around 8 p.m. Okay, so you conduct the test at around 8 a.m. the next morning. So you know that the patient has a solid 12-hour gap wherein they are not taking any food. Okay, you ask the patient not to take any food. You take two samples at that point. Sometimes you can take urine, but blood you will definitely take. That will be indicated as 0th hour. Okay, so what happens is इस पे draw नहीं कर सकते ना. I'll show it after this. You'll make a graph as well and see. So you're basically taking their glucose level at 0th hour, at the time of inducing the vertical glucose. So basically they are completely fasted. ठीक है, वहां पर क्या करते हैं, you immediately give a dose of 75 grams of glucose. You basically take 250 300 ml of water, and you mix 75 grams of anhydrous glucose in it, and you make the patient drink that slowly. If they drink it very quickly, they might vomit. So you ask the patient to drink it over 5 minutes. Okay, now that will indicate 0th hour. You will immediately draw blood and you will take a urine sample. Okay, that will be 0th hour. As you, after a little while, you keep checking their vertical blood levels after almost like every 30 minutes to every 30 minutes. You keep checking their blood. You draw a little bit amount of blood and you check the blood. Obviously this is not done at the same time. Okay, sometimes you take 1 hour and 2 hours, sometimes you take 30 minutes intervals. Now in any case, you will be able to see that if it is a normal patient, there will be an initial spike in their blood glucose and it will come back to normal, right? If it is a diabetic patient, the spike will be very high. The spike will be so that it goes way above 200. All right, 200 mg per dl. it will go nearly 250 mg per dl at the end of 1 hour. Okay, once I draw the graph, you'll understand a little better. Let me draw that graph and show you. One second. So let's suppose I'm taking this, and on x-axis I basically take time, and on y-axis I take plasma glucose level. All right, in mg per dl. Let me put it here. Now my criteria will be, let's suppose I'm making small. This is 1 30-minute mark. This is 1 hour mark. Okay, I'll write 1 here. These are in hours. Okay, so I'll write hour here. These are in hours. So this is half an hour. This is 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hour, 2.5 hours, 3 hour. Okay, generally you do not go over 2.5, 3 hours. Okay, so let me put it here, 3 hours. Now here on the left, on the y-axis, you basically take blood plasma glucose level. So I'll start taking from 50. This is 50 mg per dl, and here I go to 100 mg per dl, 150, 200, and 250. Now see, the maximum buffer that you want the blood glucose level of a patient even after eating will be around 180, 190, not more than that. So we'll keep that buffer or that threshold line here. All right, think of this as 190. Okay, I'll repeat that point once again. After eating, you do not want, or at least the ideally, what you will see is the ideally, okay, if the patient is healthy, if they are eating something, their blood glucose level will not go over 180, 190. Okay, so we are taking an example of 180 here. Now, let's suppose it is a normal patient or a normal person. Their blood glucose level, fasting blood glucose, is around, let's suppose, less than 110. Will start at around 90. Okay, 90, 100. So it is spiking a little bit. Right, at around 1 hour it will be at the peak, close to 1 hour, 1.5 hour, and after that it will start decreasing, slowly coming back to its normal level. Okay, so this is normal person. Right, I hope you are understanding. Here we are checking glucose. Okay, it is starting off from fasting. What we are seeing at zero, here at 0th time, is when you administered that oral glucose. Right, I told you 250 ml of 250 to 300 ml of water with glucose, 75 grams of anhydrous glucose mixed, and it is given to the patient. That is at 0th hour. Okay, so I'll put it as 0 here when you start. Now, as you keep going, what will happen is, after a little bit of amount of time, around 1 hour, 1.5 hour, you'll be able to see a proper spike in glucose level. This is the spike, and it will come down to normal. If the patient has impaired glucose tolerance, meaning their body is not able to tolerate glucose properly, what will happen is their initial point will also be a slightly high. Basically, I'm talking about someone with pre-diabetes. Okay, at least similar to pre-diabetes, their spike will go higher, and it will come down slowly like this. Okay, so this is impaired glucose tolerance. All right, so they are not all the way up to diabetic, but their glucose tolerance is not proper, meaning once they eat, their glucose level will spike quite a lot, and it will stay in the higher position for a longer period of time, and it will slowly eventually come down. Okay, it is not going up to one over 200, but it is significant enough. In diabetes mellitus, what happens is the initial point is very high. Fasting blood glucose will be around 140, and once they eat, they might go all the way almost up to 250. And see here, okay, as you can see, this is diabetes mellitus. One second. Diabetes mellitus. So in this, you can clearly see that their initial blood glucose level itself is high. After you perform glucose tolerance test, it is clear that their body is not able to tolerate glucose, and there is a significant spike in the glucose level in their blood. Right, their blood glucose level will significantly spike, and when it comes down to normal as well, it will not come down to normal, that is 110. It will come down to quite high, like 140, 150, or maybe slightly higher as well. Right, this basically indicates improper glucose tolerance or proper diabetes. This line that what do you call, I drew this line can also be told as renal threshold. Okay, if you remember, renal threshold is the point where if there is excessive amount of glucose, your kidneys will start excreting glucose. That is the point. It coincides with that point, 180, 190. All right, this can also be told as renal threshold, around 180, 190. I hope you understood this graph. One second. Let me take the attendance today. All came. Yeah. All right. So coming back to our this thing. Now, obviously, in glucose tolerance, you are measuring what you call the amount of glucose that the patient is able to tolerate, and over a period of around 2 hours, you'll be able to get the urine and blood sample, and that you're sending for test. Now, obviously, once you get the results, that will vary on what you are getting. So, coming back to that image here, see in this, after around 1 hour of glucose administration, once you're giving that oral glucose, if it's a normal person, their blood glucose should spike less than 160. Okay, it should be, that is normal level, it should not go over 160. If it is what do you call, after 2 hours, in a normal person it will come down to 140. In someone who is being diagnosed for diabetes, it will go over 200. Okay, that is how you know whether or not a person has diabetes. If it is over 140 and less than 200, it will basically indicate pre-diabetes. Okay, criteria for it, the last column that you can see on the right, the last row or last column, criteria for diagnosing impaired glucose tolerance. If someone has blood glucose level in between 140 to 199 after 2 hours, okay, that will basically indicate that blood their tolerance of glucose is improper, and they are likely to develop diabetes until unless they make some lifestyle changes or whatever is causing them to improperly tolerate glucose. That is how you interpret OGTT. Okay, oral glucose tolerance test. Did you guys understand, or do you want me to repeat any particular part or the whole thing? समझ में आया? Okay. Now, what causes abnormal glucose tolerance test? Okay, your abnormal curve. What is causing that? It can be impaired fasting glycemia. So, someone who is not able to tolerate, in the sense that their fasting glucose is normal, but their fasting glucose is above normal. Sorry, it is above 110. It can be from 110 to 126. Okay, but their post glucose value is normal, in the sense that they fall under this category, or let me put it this way, they fall under impaired fasting glucose. Fasting glucose category. In these people, their initial fasting glucose is higher than 110. Okay, yeah, normally it should be less than 110. In these people, it is slightly more than 110, but less than 126. But after giving glucose, their tolerance is normal. So initial point is abnormal. That is one way through where you will get an abnormal GTT curve. Okay, this is the GTT curve. Okay, what I just drew, this is the GTT curve. GTT curve. Okay, that is one way. Or gestational diabetes, if someone is pregnant, okay, there is a chance that, especially if it is a diabetic lady already who is getting pregnant, they are not included in gestational diabetic patients. Gestational diabetes patients are those who develop diabetes during pregnancy. Okay, because of improper tolerance of glucose, what will happen is they might develop pre-diabetes, or they might be pre-diabetic and they develop diabetes, or they might develop diabetes from normal. That will be gestational diabetic patient. So that is one way where you'll get abnormal curve, gestational diabetes mellitus. Or something called elementary glycosuria, glucosuria. So this is basically, here what happens is fasting and 2-hour values are normal, but exaggerated rise in blood glucose following ingestion of glucose. So as soon as you eat or what you call consume glucose, there will be abnormal spike, very high spike, but after 2 hours the value will be normal, and during fasting it will be normal. All right. So this will be elementary glucosuria. Elementary glucosuria basically means that the initial point and the end point are normal. In between, the curve spikes a lot. Okay, these are the three ways through which you can see abnormal GTT curve, wherein the curve will be abnormal. All right. So this is about OGTT. I hope you understood. Day after tomorrow, we'll continue with the rest. Okay, you have insulin and all. Right. You have insulin and a little bit more, and we'll be done with metabolism of carbohydrates after that. Okay. Hello. ठीक है